The people deal with the threat. They're the threat. I don't know how many times we have to see this in our lives to kind of figure out that they're the threat. They're the problem. This whole misinformation conversation, just want to, that's me making a little bow. I just fold it over, pull the end. We got to put a bow on this thing. How dangerous this is, how much the administration actually hates the American people, and how many people throughout America have no faith in Americans and think there should be some governmental agency to tell you what to think or not think, because there's no other way to spin what a disinformation governance board is. These aren't good, kind, decent people. These people are the freaking enemy of rational existence. Welcome, everybody, to the Morning Rumble. I'm Tony Katz. That is our sponsor, AmericansForProsperity.org, AmericansForProsperity.org. Be sure to check them out wherever they are near you. Economic liberty, free speech conversations, and certainly would be people, got to assume, laughing at the idea of a disinformation governance board if it wasn't so deadly serious. Now, we should put a touch of caveat right over here. That the idea that we would talk about restrictions on speech, or we would talk about speech absolutism, is something that could rationally happen. Some people argue it, well, can you yell fire in a crowded theater? And of course, the back and forth that has taken place in the Supreme Court on that conversation. So there are conversations to be had about the role of free speech. Can you write, hey, let's all go do physical harm to so-and-so? Can you put that out there on social media? Can you put that out there on radio or television or video, right? We have these conversations constantly. This is good. And I find myself always erring on the side of free speech, not on the side of limiting speech. But even if we were to be the ones to limit speech, which I don't agree with, it would be about we the people. This isn't about we the people. This is about they, them, the government. And if they're going to limit speech, they're always going to limit it in a way that favors them. They're going to limit the speech that they oppose. So we understand each other. Anybody who said a doctor can't speak out about COVID, even if they disagree with Dr. Fauci, was wrong. We're not agreeing to disagree here. We're not saying that the doctor actually had the right information. We're saying that limiting doctors because you didn't like that the doctor was going against your doctors, government doctors, was wrong. De facto. That's, I think, a really important place to start. Because we're not saying we would agree with the doctor. We're saying that the doctor has the right to speak. There's a really good piece over at redstate.com. Let's talk about Skokie. So Skokie, Illinois was the site. I remember the stories told to me. There were these Nazis, and Skokie is where a lot of Holocaust survivors had settled, and they wanted to have a parade, a rally, whatever you want to call it, a bunch of Nazis. And they did it solely because this is where Holocaust survivors were. And the question was, were they allowed to do this? And the answer was, yeah, of course. And as others have written, there was a lot of pressure on groups to not defend the ability of these no good bastards to do this. But if you have free speech, well, then even ugly people get to speak. And ugly people will say very often ugly things. It is not about agreeing with them. I dare somebody to say that if I believe Nazis should be able to hold a rally in Skokie, Illinois, that somehow I'm on the side of Nazis. I dare somebody to say that. Because, well, an ass kicking has to follow suit. But that's what happens from small minds. They say, oh, well, you must favor. No, you favor free speech from Americans. I argue that Louis Farrakhan is a bigot. He is a hateful, Jew-hating, white-hating, woman-hating bigot. Of course he's allowed to speak. Because that's how I know I'm allowed to speak and you're allowed to speak. That's how we know these things. These people want to decide who can speak. And the entire conversation, they're just blaming on just a bad rollout.
So we set up essentially an internal working group. And I must say that we could have done a better job in communicating what it is and what it isn't. It's a working group that takes best practices with respect to our work that has been going on for years. Mm-hmm. Best practices on how to do that work. The work of addressing disinformation that presents a threat to the security of our country.
If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your plan, you can keep your plan. Disinformation, What was that group going to do with that? What was that group going to do with that? The threat to the country is that it sold people on the idea of government medicine. It sold people on the idea of trusting government. Barack Obama is guilty for creating much of the distrust we see today in government. So is, by the way, James Comey, and yes, Christopher Wray, and certainly Andrew McCabe. And so, yes, are a whole host of people. But that was misinformation. The argument here isn't that you have a working group or a conversation about best practices, or you had a bad rollout, Secretary Mayorkas, who creeps me out. I think lies, certainly about the border, and is very bad at his job, specifically on the border. It's about the idea that you want a quasi-governmental agency or a governmental agency to make determinations about what is and isn't legit, as opposed to us deciding it for ourselves. This is where the rubber meets the road. They don't believe we can figure it out. They do not believe that we can figure out what is real and what isn't, what makes sense and what doesn't. They don't believe we do any level of research. Now, I will argue that there is a headline class in America. There are people who just read the headlines and they fill in the rest. They don't even need to know the rest. They don't read the story. They don't go to the 8th paragraph where some little tidbit maybe changes the whole focus of the story. No, they read the headline. They take what they already know. They fill in the gaps, and boom, they think they're educated. I agree that that's a problem. That doesn't get solved with government. That gets solved with telling people, you got to read the damn book. You got to read the article. Why do you think they put all those paragraphs in there? If they just want you to read the headline, the whole article would be headline. That's it. And then you could take your confirmation bias, fill in the rest, and be done. That's not how rational people should act. But government can't do that. Government can't say, here's how you should act, or here's why that's not at all. Not in the slightest, and nobody should trust them. If you find somebody trusting government to do this, you're finding somebody who loves slavery. Worse, loves being the slave. Now, if that's the way you want to role play it, my safe word is guacamole. You can absolutely play it that way, but don't you dare try and inflict this kind of insanity on the rest of us. Nobody wants your crap. If you trust government to tell you what is and what isn't, what's real and what's not, what's right and what's wrong, that's pretty sad. That's pretty sad. But you're probably one of these people who were told, don't leave your house because of COVID, and you sat there and you waited for further instructions. Should I have trusted a government that said, no, you can't go to church, and if you do, we'll actually send cops to take down license plates to give people tickets, which did happen in the United States? I'm always amazed the amount of people who didn't go to church during COVID because, well, the government says, oh, screw the government. The fight was for so much of this conversation. You go and you pray as you see fit. I'm not going because of COVID. All right. But I'm not going because of so many government conversations about COVID and not allowing other information to come forth. If I listened only to the government, I would believe that vaccines work on these variants. And of course, as we know, vaccines don't work on variants because they weren't built for variants. I mean, you can take it off label, I guess, but that's not a correlation there. You can't, this vaccine was not built for this thing. And how about the fact that while I could argue that vaccines did help people who had COVID, reduction of severe symptoms, there are plenty of people who got COVID who were asymptomatic, but you couldn't have that conversation either? I should trust the government to try and squash that conversation? That seems nonsensical to me. Certainly, I'm not an anti-vaccine guy. People can figure these things out because they always do. Do people lie? Well, sure, people lie. Of course they lie. I'm not saying they don't lie. I am making the argument that if you're trusting the government to decide who is a liar and who isn't, they will always side for the people who help their cause. And I'm not interested in the cause of government. I'm interested in the cause of people. I'm interested in us, baby. The only people I'm interested in. Government workers is just a bunch of cogs. I replace those bastards anytime I want. And I know I shouldn't name a call. I can replace some of those bastards anytime I want. That makes rational sense to us. And by the way, that's all Politico is. It's the system that matters. And when a Politico doesn't work, bloop, we take them out, bloop, we put another one in, that's it. I'm like the Michael Winslow of streaming talk. I am right there. Let's go to Connie. The Ministry of Misinformation hired the best misinformation expert they have. She's been producing misinformation for a long time. So the misinformation expert is Nina Jankowicz. Nina Jankowicz is an interesting character. Worked at the Woodrow Wilson Institute and is supposed to be able to have some kind of expertise in misinformation. I'm not somebody who's buying in. I don't buy in that there's this expertise that she has that somehow the rest of the country should have to follow along with. I think it's radically dangerous. Now, I thought I had the clip. I don't know if I have it or not. I'm trying to find it. Did you not see this? Did you not? I can't find it. It's the song that Nina Jankowicz is singing, and it's to the tune of Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and it's a musical. People, I mean, come on, you got to know these things. And she's singing about misinformation. You're like, this is an adult. This is the adult in the room. It's just flat out frightening and ridiculous to see people acting this way. No, I don't trust her, and I don't think anybody else should. I am not going to argue that she's lying from word one. I'm saying that she said that the Biden laptop was disinformation. And once you tell me that the Biden laptop, which the New York Post had right from the beginning, don't tell me about what the New York Times and the Washington Post did, like somehow they're real journalists. The New York Post had it right from the beginning. And you had so-called experts say, oh, it's Russian disinformation. And Nina Jankowicz saying, Russian disinformation, they were wrong. Once you've done that, you cannot be in charge of anything that shares information with me. And I take this on a very personal level, because what happens when she says, those conservative radio hosts, we need to be taking a long look at what they're saying. Maybe what they say has to be run through a filter, like a 20-second delay, so we can put a pause on anything out there that's disinformation. I really believed, and I said this many times, I was convinced that what we were going to see was the fairness doctrine come back, right? The idea that radio has to give equal time and it can't just be conservative voices. I really thought that's what they were going to push when Biden won the election. No, God, that's small potatoes for these people. That is small thinking for this group of folk. That's where they're at. That's where they're at. Let's go bigger. Let's go bolder. Let's go more. Let's go stronger. And that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. You better believe that if there is a disinformation governance board, they are going to take a long look at talk radio. And they're going to say, that Mark Levin, I don't know if what he's saying about the Constitution is accurate. Mark Levin, they're going to question about the Constitution. Let me know that Dan Bongino. You know how he is about the vaccine. Well, I guess we'll have to limit some of his. Why not? If you say to me, I'm overthinking it, I don't think I'm overthinking it. I think I'm dead on. If this is their job, to help Americans get the right information, they have to be the ones who state what is the wrong information. And therefore, why shouldn't they go after the people who push the wrong information? I'm on the list. Levin's on the list. Bongino's on the list. Name your favorite. I already named me. They're on the list. They're all on the list. I had some other things to get to here, including Stephanie Power. If you want to know how rough the economics are going to be, let's just take a quick look here at the markets, where we see the Dow actually up 155 and the NASDAQ up 117. They had a bad month in April. They were down 900 there on Friday. So I'm not surprised that there's some kind of pullback and return. But you saw there this thing. Where's right there? Look at him. Look at him right there. There's Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. I am not a Munger fan, because Munger says things like this about Bitcoin and about Xi Jinping.
In my life, I try and avoid things that are stupid and evil and make me look bad in comparison with somebody else. And Bitcoin does all three. and in the first place, it's stupid because it's very likely to go to zero. The second place, it's evil because it undermines the Federal Reserve System and the national currency system, which we desperately need to maintain its integrity and government control and so on. And third, it makes us look foolish compared to the communist leader in China. He was smart enough to ban Bitcoin in China. And with all of our presumed advantages of civilization, we are a lot dumber than the communist leader in China.
How am I supposed to like that guy who sees a value in Xi Jinping and a real value in government control and domination? I say we start with Charlie Munger's fortune. Why would a guy with all his success all of a sudden be a guy who doesn't favor the market and innovation and disruption? Because it disrupts him? He didn't give a damn who he disrupted. Am I to believe that Charlie Munger, and I don't know his whole story, I don't want to, paint the picture for you. I'm asking a question. Anybody ever lose a job because of Charlie Munger or Charlie Munger lost sleep? Asking out loud. But anytime you're saying that Xi Jinping had it right, you are clearly in the wrong. That is misinformation. Or, said differently, that's just stupid and sick. I find that ugly as sin. And I think that when you see that kind of stuff, you hear people applauding it. It further sets for me this divide between Wall Street and Midwest Main Street. Whatever it is they do, it is not for the greatness of the nation. I want Wall Street to improve. I want my 401k to improve. I want things to get better. But I want Midwest Main Street to be able to get their products in from overseas, get these supply chains better so they can continue to sell product and profit and be able to make a living and support their families. I'm much more interested in that. The divide is ever wider. But when you have the so-called leadership, if you ask me what's more frightening, Elon Musk buying Twitter or Charlie Munger supporting the communist Chinese leader Xi Jinping, I'll go with Munger and the commies. Musk is not my problem, but everybody's acting like Musk is their problem. No. Let me give you a problem. This is Stephanie Power, the former UN ambassador under Barack Obama, talking about fertilizer shortages. Again, Midwest Main Street, Midwest farmers getting wrecked on this, and how it's nothing more than an opportunity.
Fertilizer shortages are real now because Russia's a big exporter of fertilizer. And even though fertilizer is not sanctioned, less fertilizer is coming out of Russia. As a result, we're working with countries to think about natural solutions like manure and compost. And this may hasten transitions that would have been in the interest of farmers to make eventually anyway. So never let a crisis go to waste, but we really do need this financial support from the Congress to be able to meet emergency food needs so we don't see the cascading deadly effects of Russia's war extend into Africa and beyond.
You see, you need fertilizer in order to grow the crops, and right now we don't have enough fertilizer coming in, and it's a real problem. And don't worry, we'll take advantage of that problem later, but right now we just got to get them the help. So you got to spend more money, and then you use this crisis as an opportunity to do what? To do what on the fertilizer side? More green this? More so-called clean energy that? You can have all the electric vehicles in the world, and the electricity has to get created. You're going to create it somehow. But they love a crisis. They love the opportunity they gain and get from a crisis. These people never, ever, ever stop. Ugly as sin. And are proud of it. You want to know what misinformation is? That wind and solar are anywhere near ready to be able to help our farmers with products. They still need the gas that goes into the tractor. It's what they need. I didn't say we shouldn't, we should not look towards other ways to power things. I'm fine with that. To be disruptive. But you got to be disruptive on a level playing field, not where you force prices so high on gas that solar looks good by comparison and solar doesn't work. Windmills, I'm tired of killing all the damn birds. Misinformation is that's what we have to have. It isn't what we have to have. It's what those people suggested. We put billions of dollars into it, and we haven't gotten an ounce of worthy reward just yet. I go to the comments. What is up, my people? Boom, boom, boom. Sarah has the article from Susie there from Red State, a long way from Skokie. It's a good article. You're going to want to check that out right there. According to Andy, I am dead on. I disagree with a lot of people, but I want them to be able to say what they want. That's the free speech conversation. You know, the cliche is, I disagree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. And it's a cliche because you're really going to defend to the death the right of Louis Farrakhan to be a Jew-hating bigot? I doubt that. But you got to protect his right to free speech. You gotta do that. Vicky, what's going on? Only a fool questions Mark Levin's knowledge of the Constitution or anything else for that matter. Wait a second. I don't know the man's knowledge about Chinese food. I could have serious issues with it. But I brought up Levin because of the Constitution, because of his scholarship there, because of his history there. And of course, there are going to be people who say it. That's exactly where they're going to question him. So all of a sudden, you can't trust him on the Constitution. That's the purpose, right? That's what you do with a disinformation governance board. It's not about discovering disinformation. It's about deciding what is disinformation. Those are very, very, very different things right there. Let me go to Pat. What's going on, Pat? It's not that they don't think we can determine the truth. It's that they don't want to allow us to. Okay, I'll take that as a very, very good analysis. And I started with this, the lack of faith they have in us to figure this out. And it's because they want to figure it out for us. As we discussed, if you have government telling you what is information, they're telling it to you for their purpose because it fits their need, wants, and mantra. Do I think that government is altruistic? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If government was altruistic, they would have stayed at Article 1, Section 8, and they would be a lean, mean fighting machine. But they're not. They're this bloated pile. And I personally want far less of a pile. Government, I'm fine with. Government, I'm fine with. Bloated government, well, that I am not fine with. Just some of the things going on. I thought I had one more video for you. Oh, here, let me share this with you. You know that Nancy Pelosi, she went to Ukraine. Really quick, listen.
Do not be bullied by bullies. If they're making threats, you cannot back down. That's my view of it. That we're there for the fight, and you cannot fold to a bully.
Well, I find it weird that she uses the bully comparison. This is an invasion of Ukraine from a fighting force that is incompetent but deadly. A little more than a bully. The bully thing may work in the American press, the soft, weak American press and those on college campuses. But I don't think it works worldwide. So I think she looks a bit the fool there. Having gone to visit Ukraine, I started with the theory of I'm not bothered by this. I don't think she had to go. I don't think that Biden has to go. I don't need that photo op. I think she thought she needed it. But it has to be understood what it is that you're supporting. If you ask me if I support Vladimir Zelensky and Toto and everything Ukraine has ever done, the answer is absolutely not. Stories of going after press because they disagree with something or they're printing something he doesn't like. I mean, there's a lot of those stories out there. Of course, I resent it and I reject it. But I'm dealing with a guy who, if we help, he further weakens Russia. And that's a win for us. And there's a whole conversation about how we should be phrasing these things. And you hear the progressive left and you hear some on the right talk about we're going to win and we're going to beat Putin. Isn't that exacerbating a conversation or a situation, forcing Putin into doing far more violent things to try and get a result he can live with, which is getting the Donbass and maybe some other face-saving issues? And if he's gone, has this government figured out what they're going to do about Russia regarding China? Because even if he's not gone, China's going to utilize Russia as a vassal state because Russia's been financially obliterated. Oh, and it turns out they don't have a military. You can walk over these guys in 7 seconds. It's the nuclear weapons that are the problem. So what happens when China just starts, through exercises, moving people into Russia and then just staying, taking control of one area, taking control of another area? Is the United States ready for this? Is Pelosi? I don't think so. I don't think so at all or in any way. But I just want it said. I just want it said that I support helping Ukraine fight back against this invasion because it weakens Putin. I think that's better. And I think that's a foreign policy idea. I have no problem with this. But don't think for a second I think everything Ukraine does is hunky and dory. I sure as hell do not. That is the Morning Rumble, people, brought to you by Americans for Prosperity. Look at them. Ain't them beautiful? AmericansForProsperity.org. You can find me on Locals, TonyKatz.locals.com. I had the chat room open. I still have the chat room open, so you can go check that out. I was just checking. Check that out right there, TonyKatz.locals.com. You can subscribe and be supportive of all the content that we're doing over here. I have some cigar events that are getting planned starting in the summer, and they'll go into the fall as we start working on cigar taxes in Indiana. So if you're in Indiana, be prepared. I'm working with the guys at AFP to have some cigar events. We've got some specific groups and spots. We're going to have some more open things for the people to understand how we lower these taxes, help these small businesses, help the citizenry, and actually grow revenue. I know it's I don't worry about whether the state gets revenue or not, but we've seen the results of what happens when you create a tax base that is well affordable and connected. Yes, I'd love the cigar taxes to be zero in Indiana. I'm not going to get my wish, so I'm dealing with reality. Get the reality, and then you can go for better at any time in the future. So get ready for that. Gonna be some cool cigar events coming from yours truly in Americans for Prosperity. We will catch you next time, guys. You take care. Oh, tell everybody to subscribe. Don't be a putz. Subscribe. Would you get on over to Rumble, rumble.com/TonyKatz, rumble.com/TonyKatz, and get it done. Subscribe and tell all your friends. I'll catch you later.